I know that some people were wanting to ask questions and stuff in the chat room. Maybe it would be a good time to do that. I'm going to have to head out here before too long, but I'd certainly want to get to some of the questions before we do.
Ooh, Chris, can I interrupt and do that one?
Yeah, sure. I think I've kind of, I really wanted, I mean, it's like, I could go on for hours and hours, of course, but I won't. I'll say maybe, hey, Chris, do you think maybe you want to do it again sometime in the...
Definitely want to do it again, man. The sooner the better.
All right, great, man. So yeah, I'll be in touch with you, and then we maybe set this up again, because that's like it's like any of these subjects, like I was saying, can there's a lot to say about it. So anyway,
definitely. Maybe let's do that. And by the way, let's also do like let's come up with some kind of thing where I can do look into something in particular or something beforehand, so we can really try to dig into a particular topic or something. It'd be pretty cool.
Okay, all right, that sounds good.
I actually think you'll like this topic because I get the impression, Chris White, that you've probably memorized the Bible. I have a Christian friend who has literally memorized, I think it's the King James Bible. Are you in the same boat?
No.
Oh, okay.
I certainly love it, but that would be a monumental feat.
Well, he did it. It's amazing. So here's the thing. You had, on your talk with Alex McMillan, Spark of Life, exactly a month and 2 days ago, you had, I believe, suggested that no one has ever come out and claimed contradictions or inconsistencies with the Bible. Did I catch that right?
That no one has claimed contradictions in the Bible? I mean, you can do a quick Google search and find about 101 list of biblical contradictions out there. And no, right. I certainly wouldn't have claimed that.
Okay. I got the impression that you either alluded to that or flat out said that.
No. I mean, that would be, I get probably sent a list of 101 biblical contradictions about once a day.
Actually, I have 342.
Okay, what's the first one on the list?
Well, the first one is, and these are like the most serious ones that, now I've never been into the Bible. I was actually born a Jew. And as soon as my bar mitzvah was over, I said, I don't want to be tagged as a group or a religion, so I am completely religion free. But when I heard your talk with Alex, and I knew you were going to be on today, I said, let me invest the day away from work, and let's look into these contradictions. And here's what I've come up with. In no particular order. In Genesis, it looks like chapter 1, verse 20, it says, birds were created before man was created. Yet, in the same book, it says man was created before birds were created. Any thoughts on that?
Well, okay, what verse? So I'm looking it up here. Genesis 20.
Genesis 1... Genesis chapter 1, verse 20 through 21 and 26 through 27 says that birds were created before man was created. And Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 and verse 19 says man was created before birds were created.
Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, and Jehovah formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed in his nostrils and the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And Jehovah God planted a garden eastward, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made Jehovah to grow a tree, and it is pleasant to the sight. And for Genesis 2, verses 7 and what?
And then the one that says birds were created before man was Genesis chapter 1, verse 20 through 21.
Right. But the other, Genesis 2, 7, what did you say?
No, the one you already did was 2, 7.
What does that say about birds?
It says man was created before birds.
Yeah, I know that. That's what I would say. Now, Genesis 2:7 says, and Jehovah God formed man from the dust of the ground.
Now, Genesis chapter 1, verse 20 through 21.
Verse 20. And God said, let the waters form, with the living waters, let birds fly. Yeah, the birds have formed before man. Now, where's the one that says that man was formed before birds?
Well, that was the first one you read. So you read that it said in the same book that man was created before birds, but then in the same book it says birds were created before man. Which one is it?
I didn't read that. Give me the verses again. This one says, and God said, let the waters swarm with the swarms of living creatures. Okay? So we've got water swarming with living creatures. Let the birds fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created, and it's okay, yeah. So created birds before man. Now that's in Genesis 1:20.
Right.
Now,
but in Genesis 2:7 says man was created before birds were created.
Now you read Genesis 2:7 to me.
Okay. Let me pull that up here. And I'm going to a website again. I've never understood the Bible up until today, so bear with me here. Let's see. I have it's called BibleGateway.com, and they kind of
yeah.
And it says, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul.
Okay, now where's it got birds in there? I'm missing it.
I don't know. It says, and the Lord God formed, it doesn't say that he formed birds before he formed man. See, that's the thing about the Bible that really blows me away.
No, that's the thing about those contradiction sites, man. Everyone is something is stupid about it. In the context, it doesn't make any sense. There are some that, they get the numbers wrong, and a lot of those times, you've got the issue, especially in the New Testament, when you've got Luke writing things and he's a Greek, and you've got Matthew writing something and he's a Hebrew, and so you've got the issue of he's numbering things from Sabbath to Sabbath as a Greek wouldn't do it, and certain things like that. So they've got a lot of these numbered contradictions. Most of them have to do with the context. If you just read it in context, and this one, I don't know, maybe we're missing something here, but
that's, see, without even getting into all these contradictions, that's the issue. I can if you would like. I mean, I've got all the time in the world. If you like, I can go over as many as you want. But that's the problem, is that it's like, okay, where does it say this? Where does it say that? There's a lot of implication, a lot of interpretation that goes into it. I mean, I can make it seem like Genesis 2:7 made it sound like God was going to bring down the towers because dust on the ground was breathed.
The burden of proof here is on you to prove that there's a contradiction here, right?
No. No. I'm not looking to prove anything. I'm looking to understand how life works, and I'm looking for your help to point me in the right direction here. And it seems to me, just by looking at this, it says that in 2:7, God was created before whatever, and in Genesis 1:20,
man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. That has nothing to do with birds. The issue there is an interesting thing in itself. I mean, that's the creation of man. What the soul, the immortal part of man, is what's breathed into the nostrils here. That's what is celebrated in terms of the creation of man. What's in the image of God is what's been here breathed into his nostrils. It has nothing to do with birds. Hey, look, man, I hear you about the biblical contradictions thing. Some of those are pretty tricky. I would say the majority of them are not. What I want you to do is, if you can email me the list of it, and I'll go through each one with you. Email me the ones that you went through today and that you found personally, you found them to be difficult.
But there were 342.
Well, okay.
I don't want to see you go through that effort.
Well, I mean, if you seriously do, I'm telling you, I'll do a huge thing with each individual one. If you want to pick out, let's say, 10 of them that you find to be particularly whatever. That's what I like doing. I literally spend about 5 hours every day answering emails in audio formats like I'm talking to you right now.
Right.
From people that send me those contradictions and things.
What email should I use? Mm-hmm.
Nowhere to run 1984@gmail.com.
Whoa. Nowhere to run 1984?
Yeah, at Gmail. And then, but yeah, I mean, try not to send the whole list. I mean, obviously I can't get to the whole list, but send me to the ones that are, and any other questions like that.
I have another question that I think Chris was trying to get to. By the way, Chris Kendall, did you just call up Chris and ask him to come on, or did you know him before? Or?
Oh, no, I contacted him through his website. He's got his email up there. Mm-hmm.
That's great. I mean, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Chris. And it's like, I was gonna. I was going to make one more point. Finally, my brain clicked over, and I was making a point, and I kind of lost it, which I do from time to time. But I was bringing up the evolution, and it actually goes back to what you were just talking about can we know anything? Is the university, the scholarship, is there any integrity and stuff in there? But that would speak to some integrity there. If, you got this fossil, and it's like it's this transitional fossil between the lizard and the bird, and then it's outed as a hoax. So it tells me that there's we're not dealing with a system or something that's absolutely controlled. So yeah, I think that even backs up what you were saying about as far as biblical scholarship, and that's kind of what I wanted to make the whole topic about, was the Bible in light of scholarship and what we can and can't know about stuff we dig out of the ground, basically, to simplify it. So
yeah, man, and I would definitely appeal to the idea that I understand what you're saying there, Marcus, about people being able to subjectively kind of claim whatever they want to about the Bible, and I would say that they do that not on what the Bible is saying. Take Catholicism, for example. I mean, they have a lot of things that they say and do that are so contradictory to the Bible. I mean, directly contradictory to the Bible. But when people want to do something, they will spiritualize, if you will, allegorize something. Like, for instance, Jesus says, "Hey, look, if you love your enemies, pray for them." Obviously, there's a million and one different ways you could say, "Look, don't kill your enemies," but yet we have governments that want to kill their enemies, and they have massive propaganda campaigns targeted at churches to get them to take what it clearly forbids in the Bible and says, "Look, no, pray for your enemies, love them to death. Vengeance is mine. I'll take care of that. You guys are on a mission of love. Love like you can't love anymore. That's your job. I'll take care of the rest," God says. And yet we have people interpreting it because, and that's the same thing that they've always done. The Shinto wars in Japan were no different. It's the government's manipulating and things like that. But the issue is that the Bible itself refutes it. That's why people always got burned alive in the so-called Dark Ages, because they were looking at their Bibles and saying, "Okay, you guys are saying that Mary is this and I got to do all this stuff, but this thing says not only that, it says, a completely contradictory thing. You guys are wrong, and this Bible is right." And it's like, well, that's really nice. Burn him. I mean, that's what we're talking about. The Bible saying what it says, but then everybody saying, "No, we don't want it to say that. Let me tell you what it says." The Bible is consistently what is refuting a lot of those sort of ideas that people have. Well, you can make it mean whatever you want. Yeah, you can make it mean whatever you want, but you have to do that in order to do it, you have to sacrifice what it says, is what I guess what I'm saying. But anyway,
well, you had mentioned a couple of things just now that I'm not so sure you understand what kind of talk that we have. We're probably the most skeptical people on the planet, and you just said that governments are basically out to get us and to kill us and all that sort of thing. We're finding through our snooping, looking into, and reverse engineering facts that that's not the case. For example, on 9/11, we're finding that the towers were empty on 9/11. We're finding that there were probably no bombs that hit Nagasaki and Hiroshima in Japan. Even the Japan tsunami, which we've been told, through what's called psychic driving repetition over the media, Chris you're talking to right now, he actually made a Skype phone call he found someone through the Skype directory who was English speaking in the center of Sendai, and he actually called him up because we don't trust the media at all. And he asked him, he said, your town's supposed to be devastated. What do you see? And the guy basically said in about 17 minutes, there's not a single trace of evidence of a tsunami or earthquake that hit here.
So I suppose the wars that followed 9/11, nobody actually died in those either.
Well,
no oil was taken or nothing like that. And churches weren't told that killing Muslims are good, and that's what Jesus would do, and none of that stuff actually happened. I mean,
well, the question is, how do you know that it happened? Because the media told us? Because scholars told us?
Well, I have friends in the military that died. I mean, what am I supposed to think about the fact that there really is a war going on?
How do you know that?
Okay. Right. So
see, now you're going to consider me a nutball, right? But if you do, then you're going to consider Chris a nutball too, and everyone else listening to this broadcast. See, we're open-minded and we're very skeptical of what people tell us. Most of us, I should say. I'm not going to make a blanket statement. And it doesn't make sense that there was a tsunami in Japan. If you look at the videos, I mean, it's off-the-chart fakery. Cars don't float. Buildings don't float when they come off their foundations. I mean, very basic stuff like that makes you just go, what in the world are they doing with the PSYOP on TV? I mean, would you disagree with that?
Man, I don't even think that I'm talking about a tsunami, at this point. I mean, I don't know about that, but I do know that
you had said that non-biblical evidence, if we were to consider people who bring up non-biblical evidence, then we have to say that nothing can be trusted. That's what you said before, right?
I think the whole issue here was that I said that you said, hey, governments aren't actually out to kill us. They, the whole point was, look, governments manipulate people to do what they want them to do. If they can't sell bombs and they can't do this unless the people actually go out and fight the wars. And in order to do that, all you have to do is read Edward Bernays or any of these guys to recognize it's business. Propaganda, stirring up propaganda is one of the oldest and most refined in America tricks in the book. And what does that propaganda do? You want to back engineer something, back engineer the propaganda. It's on the TV, it's in the movies, it's in the music. You don't have to go all that far. And anyway.
So what I'm sounding like is you agree with me. I mean, I'm probably the biggest protege of Eddie Bernays you could find. I'm in the marketing business. In fact, it's pretty clear to me through triangulation of the evidence that Eddie Bernays actually manufactured the 1929 Depression from his from his apartment.
Well, he may have. I don't know. But I also know that Edward Bernays is well known to really build himself up more than just about anything else. I mean,
but again, how do we know that? How do we know that?
With Edward Bernays, it's a little hard. It's hard to know what he actually did do and what he didn't. He certainly spoke really highly of himself. But what he did and what he didn't do, I certainly know he did a lot.
Do you know about the United Fruit Company?
Yeah, the whole Banana Republic thing started with him and all that, yeah.
I mean, does anyone disagree that he basically ruined an economy for a fruit company?
Yeah, I mean, what's your point?
Well, my point is that you're making statements that you're pushing as facts.
You're saying that because one isolated incident is a deception, then you're making the connection that, the war currently is a deception. It doesn't matter what you've seen in the war. It doesn't matter how many of your friends have died in the war. It's not happening because Edward Bernays manipulated a fruit company.
No. You're spinning my words. What I'm saying is that every time I look at the evidence of what hasn't happened, see, I don't look at what could happen, and I think that's the danger that we're going through right now, is especially with the Bible, is you're telling us what could happen, what scholars say, what reams of evidence show that this happened. My question is...
The issue is, as long as we talk broadly about what can we know, let's talk about what the issue is that you want to know, and then we can start sharing evidence. As long as we're sitting here like, just mentally masturbating, saying, okay, well, we can't know this. Oh, yeah, you can. No, you can't. Everything's a deception. Okay, no, it isn't.
I never said everything was
whatever it is that you're saying, exactly whatever you're saying, that's what I'm talking about. And then we can say, okay, well, let's talk about this issue.
I can talk about name an issue, and I can talk about it, and I'll give you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What my point is here, man, is that things are knowable. Your research that you're doing on whatever, the tsunami or whatever, you're doing that because there is a potential of you finding the truth.
No, that's where I disagree.
If there is no truth or no way to find the truth,
right?
What the hell are you doing? Why are you even doing this?
Well, because I'm trying to help people deprogram themselves from the propaganda using their own tools and showing them the methods that I use to show that...
You're going to deprogram somebody based on what methodology? Some true methodology?
I don't care. I don't care what scholarly people tell me. I barely passed through high school. I'm not the sharpest bulb in the shed. But I can tell you this. What's that?
You're you're essentially claiming an absolute truth about.
No, I'm claiming that it is impossible with today's.
You're going to deprogram somebody with in order to deprogram somebody, you have to be less programmed than the rest of the programmers. You have to know more truth than the person that you're going to deprogram.
No, no, because first of all, you're using an absolute statement that there is no one truth. Look,
man, I don't really want to debate this what is truth with you right now, because it's just a philosophical argument until we start talking about individual topics.
Let's talk about what do you want? You want to talk about the tsunami? You want to talk about 9/11? You want to talk about vaccines? You want to talk about fluoride? How do we know?
All those things at a different time. I would love to talk with you about anything that you want to. Just email me, and we can totally set up a whole talk.
I've already sent the list to you by email.
Okay.
Okay. Well, yeah, Chris, I appreciate you coming on here, and yeah, hopefully we do this again, and